of the people. The white monkey.
Okay, so I've had like a lot of personal stuff lately, and yeah, I don't know. I just hate dealing with personal stuff, to be honest. But nonetheless, it's been a few days now, and I'm surprised I forgot to make this video. But I want to give my quick takes on Monkey Man. I think it was produced by Jordan Peele. If you're not aware of who Jordan Peele is, he made films such as Get Out, which is a pretty good film that I still haven't seen, if I'm gonna be honest. Do not hate on me. But Monkey Man, honestly, it was a pretty solid film. People were thinking, oh, this is just going to be an Indian version of John Wick, blah, 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 blah. I mean, from the trailers and from the looks of it, yeah, it kind of has the same aesthetic. I think from an artistic standpoint, it kind of had like a inspiration from John Wick, but this film is actually pretty good for what it is. As far as our main character, he's not John Wick, so to say. He's just a guy that kind of knows how to do things. Essentially, the plot of this film is when he was younger, as a kid, he was tormented by this general who annihilated his village, who took out his people as well as his mother. And growing up, he ended up, like, I believe in this boxing ring, Muay Thai. I'm not too sure what the fighting was called that he was doing while wearing the monkey mask, but he essentially was doing that. He was pretty poor. He grew up in the slums, while the rich just kept getting richer and richer. This is set in India, by the way, and there was a election throughout the film, and the whole point of the story was to take out the general and the guy trying to be a prophet before they could gain to power, before they could gain notoriety, which was pretty interesting. And I'll get to the politics of the film later on in this video. But as the film progresses, like, the first attempt on the general's life essentially fails. Oh yeah, by the way, spoilers for the movie if you haven't really seen it. But yeah, essentially the first assassination of the general that, like, hold his mother and him fails miserably, and he just gets dragged on. Then this really cool fight sequence, which honestly kind of rivals John Wick in certain aspects, because I really did like the direction some of the fighting actually went in, and it was just pretty cool because he's not all like human. He's not superhuman throughout the film. He's just a guy who's kind of strong, who's running on adrenaline, which I very much like. It's only till the latter half of the film where he goes berserk, where he's fully rested, fully trained up to take on the general and the prophet along with his forces, that it gets really, really good. Overall, it's a pretty solid film. I give it an 8 out of 10. Story-wise, sometimes it actually does feel like it's dragged out, and like the characters just feel kind of unnecessary, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, the short dude, I forgot his name. I mean, he's there in the beginning of the film, but towards the end, he doesn't really serve too much of a purpose. I don't understand why include him. I mean, including him in the first act and, like, the second act was pretty good, but including him in the third, he was just there for, like, a brief cameo, which, I don't know, I didn't really see. His character didn't really have too much other than just hiring our main guy, the Monkey Man, getting him a job at the position of power in order to be able to get close to the general's daughter. I believe she was an asshole, by the way, a complete asshole. And the love interest, she was basically like a cook that the higher ups took and threatened her, like, oh hey, if you don't do what we're saying, we're gonna throw you back on the street. You're a very pretty girl, we really don't want you to go to waste. And I don't know, like, some of the underlying messages about sexual activity, political messaging, political homicide was pretty interesting. The fight scenes itself make this film pretty solid. It kind of reminds me of IP Man. It reminds me of IP Man, if I'm gonna be honest, which is pretty cool. The ending of the film, I didn't mind. Like, it kind of felt ambiguous whether he survived or whether he died. Most likely bro died, but I still think it was a pretty good film nonetheless. 8 out of 10. Now, as far as the political messaging goes, I know apparently this film wasn't going to be released at all on Netflix due to its political underlyings with India and, like, the corruption in India, which I can understand. It's technically election year in India at the moment, so I see why they didn't want to release the film, because they didn't want to get any backlash towards it. But it doesn't really make sense, because here in America, we have a film literally called Civil War about the Second American Revolution, which is fiction, by the way, hasn't actually happened. Praying it doesn't happen. But yeah, I don't understand what's the problem with releasing, like, political films like this about, like, oh hey, our government is corrupt, we must do something about it. I don't understand why Netflix was so scared about that. It wasn't actually until, like, Jordan Peele like vetoed or something to make this go and do a theatrical release, which honestly was a pretty good choice on his end. Props to Jordan Peele, because this movie was really really good. If you think it's gonna be all like knockoff John Wick, it kind of is, but at the same time it kind of feels like its own thing, and I honestly liked it, and I did like its message that you have to get over your past to move on with better. And there was this one part in the film where it says, in order to have peace, destruction must come before creation, which is technically true. And I love like the hints about Buddhism, and like I don't know, there's a lot of hints about Buddhism, Hinduism, which I'm not really too familiar with, but I really did find it pretty fascinating. To me, the whole Indian culture, the whole Indian religion is pretty fascinating. I've always found it pretty interesting because there's a lot of cool stories about that. There's a lot of cool mythologies within it, which I find to be pretty fascinating. Overall, this is a pretty solid film, and I would recommend you guys actually go watch it because it's kick-ass, man. Like, it's really, really good. If you want another version of John Wick, I highly recommend go check this out. If you like IP, man, John Wick, this is kind of a mix of both. But yeah, that's just my quick takes on the movie. Story at times felt a little weak, a little bit dragged out. Fighting absolutely good. Choreography, visually, aesthetically, it was all there. It was all there, man. But yeah, have you seen the movie? What do you guys think of it? And yeah,